Germany in 1918 was a nation in ruins. The First World War had consumed Europe for 4 long years. It had ended in defeat. The German emperor had fled. The country was left exhausted and humiliated. Millions of its young men were dead. Millions were wounded. People at home suffered severe hunger. People lived in poverty, not just a military loss, a deep wound to the national spirit. People saw a world turned upside down. The old government was gone, replaced by a fragile democracy, the Weimar Republic. Born in crisis, many Germans didn't trust it. They linked it to the surrender and the harsh peace terms to come. The ground was fertile for political extremism. People looked for simple answers. The economic situation was catastrophic. Daily life became a struggle to survive. The war drained the nation's wealth. The peace treaty demanded huge payments. To pay debts, the government printed more and more money. Soon, that money became worthless. Visual. German children playing with stacks of worthless banknotes during the hyperinflation crisis in 1923. This condition is called hyperinflation. Imagine needing a wheelbarrow full of cash to buy 1 loaf of bread. Family savings built over generations vanished overnight. The collapse destroyed the middle class, leaving millions desperate and insecure. A society without a stable middle class is in danger. National trauma, political instability, economic despair made the German people vulnerable. They longed for stability, for a strong leader to restore pride and promise a better future. They wanted someone to make Germany strong again, to undo the humiliation of the war, to provide jobs and food. That desperation created perfect conditions for a figure like Adolf Hitler. He understood their fears and their anger. He used those emotions to his advantage, offering a simple, appealing, but ultimately destructive path forward. Into this world of fear and anger stepped Adolf Hitler. He was a master of public speaking, a charismatic performer. He could capture the attention of a crowd. He did not engage in calm, rational debate. Instead, he channeled the rage and frustration of his audience. He spoke with a raw, hypnotic intensity, his voice rising from a low murmur to a furious shout. He told people what they desperately wanted to hear. They were not to blame. He said they were a great people who had been betrayed. He promised he alone could restore their lost honor and bring back prosperity. His rallies were carefully staged spectacles. They were designed to create a feeling of power and belonging. A key part of Hitler's appeal was his use of propaganda. Propaganda is information, often biased or misleading, used to promote a political cause. The Nazis, under Joseph Goebbels, were experts at this. They used simple slogans. They used powerful symbols like the swastika. They used striking posters to spread their message everywhere. They promised something for everyone. To the unemployed, jobs building highways and stadiums. To the farmers, fair prices. The Nazi Party was not just Adolf Hitler, it was a highly organized and disciplined political machine. Hitler understood that to gain power, he needed more than just powerful speeches. He needed a structure that could reach into every corner of German society. The party was organized like an army, with a clear chain of command and Hitler at the very top, the Führer. This structure was called the Führerprinzip. It demanded absolute obedience. It let the Nazis act decisively and present a unified front. That contrasted with the bickering of Weimar's democratic parties. A critical component was the paramilitary wing, SA, Sturmabteilung, the brown shirts. The SA were the party's street fighters. They were often unemployed young men and former soldiers. They were drawn to the uniform, the sense of camaraderie. By the early 1930s, the Nazi Party had become the largest party in the German parliament, the Reichstag, but it still did not have a majority. The democratic system was gridlocked. Governments were weak and short-lived, unable to pass effective laws to combat the Great Depression. The conservative elites distrusted Hitler, industrialists, aristocrats, military leaders. They feared the communists even more. They believed they could control Hitler. In a fatal miscalculation, they persuaded President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint Hitler Chancellor on January 30th, 1933. They planned to use his popular support, creating a cabinet with only a few Nazis in key posts. They thought they had him trapped. 1 month later, on February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building was set on fire. The Nazis blamed the communists, calling it the start of an uprising. Historians still debate the cause, but Hitler used it as the perfect excuse to seize extraordinary powers. He convinced Hindenburg to sign the Reichstag fire decree. The decree suspended civil liberties, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to assemble. Once all political opposition was eliminated, the Nazis focused on reshaping German society itself. Their goal was Gleichschaltung, or coordination, which meant bringing every aspect of life under the control of the party. Laws were no longer a shield for the citizen, but a weapon for the state. The police were transformed from protectors of the people into instruments of the Nazi regime. A new secret state police, the Gestapo, was created. It encouraged citizens to spy on their neighbors, friends, family members. The slightest sign of dissent, a critical joke listening to a foreign radio station, could lead to a knock on the door in the middle of the night, followed by arrest, interrogation, imprisonment in a concentration camp. Propaganda and censorship worked hand in hand to control what people saw, heard, and thought. Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda. The legal system was also bent to serve the Nazi ideology. Judges and lawyers had to swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler. The principle that a person is innocent until proven guilty was abandoned. New laws were introduced that targeted specific groups, most notably the Nuremberg Laws of 1935. These laws stripped Jewish citizens of their German citizenship, forbade them from marrying or having relationships with non-Jewish Germans, and systematically excluded them from public life. These laws were a critical step in the process of dehumanization, making it easier for the regime to later escalate its persecution to violence and eventually to mass murder. Law became a tool for persecution, not justice. Through this combination of terror, propaganda, and law, the Nazi regime atomized society, breaking the bonds between people and leaving each individual isolated and powerless before the state. Independent institutions, political parties, trade unions, free press, and courts that stand between the citizen and the government were all destroyed. In their place was the party, the leader, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear. The consolidation of Nazi power had catastrophic consequences, not just for Germany, but for the entire world. The regime's aggressive foreign policy, aimed at conquering living space for the German people, led directly to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. This conflict became the deadliest in human history, causing the deaths of tens of millions of people. Domestically, the regime's hateful ideology culminated in the Holocaust, the systematic, state-sponsored genocide of 6 million European Jews and millions of other victims, Roma homosexuals, disabled persons, political opponents. The story of Hitler's rise is a stark reminder how quickly a modern, educated nation can descend into barbarism. The central lesson from this dark chapter of history is that democracy is fragile and must be actively protected. It is not a permanent state of affairs, but a set of rules and institutions that require constant vigilance and participation from its citizens. The future of freedom depends on it.